Milito, the Ancient Warfare card game by Martin Wallace. This is a game that has not been released yet. I have a prototype here, as you can see from the box and the rulebook that came out of someone's printer. But the cards, I've been told, are already final, pretty much how you will see them in the final product after the Kickstarter campaign that should start soon. So the game is not out yet. The publisher asked me if I wanted to take a look and make a video for it, and I was happy to do so because the game looked interesting, and I don't mind trying games before everybody else does. But I want to clarify, this is not a paid preview. It is a preview only in the sense that it comes out before the Kickstarter, before the game is available, but it is 100% a review in the sense that I'm gonna tell you what I think about the game, and I did not get any money to make this video. Now, Milito. It is a game in which players will control armies. Each army is represented by a deck of cards, and there are 6 armies that come with the base set. We have the Republican Romans, the Carthaginians, Imperial Romans, Ancient Brits, when they wanted to Brexit from the Empire, already back in the day, the Alexandrian, Macedonian, and then the Persians. So you can, there are some sort of like pairings, you know, like wine and food that go more naturally, like Republican Romans and Carthaginians, but you can mix and match any of those. It is a 2-player game, so each time you will have 2 players, each player controlling an army represented by a deck of cards. Then you have terrain cards, those ones and these ones here. You shuffle them and you draw 5 randomly. Planes, you will try to put them in the middle of the line. You need to form a line of 5 cards. And other types of terrain, they will go on the flanks. It's possible if you drew 3, the one will be 1 in, but it's also possible they will look like this, or there will only be 1 type on unusual terrain, maybe it'll all be plains. And this really represents the fact that so many battles in ancient time did take place in places that look a bit like this, a lot of plain with some things on the flanks and not much else. Now, those cards, you can see, have a control printed there at the bottom. At the beginning of the game, you place them in a line such as this one. Then the players will play their cards on the sides of the cards. So this play on this side, the other play on the other side. You can have up to 2 cards, so there's 2 military units next to each card. And during your turn, there's a phase of your turn, if you are there unopposed, so you have units in next to a card and there's no one on the other side, then you turn the card to your side. For example, ooh, look at that, I control that one. I most certainly do, and I also have control of that one. Hooray. Oopsie. If at the beginning of your turn you are controlling 3 locations, you win the game. This is how you win the game. Pretty much means that you need to gain advantage during your turn, and then you need to retain control of at least 3 locations through the turn of the opponent when the game goes back to you. If you're still in control of 3 or more, you win the game. As for the cards, they have these absolutely stunning illustrations. You have leaders and combat units. Combat units, they have a movement value here. The movement value is used if one of the 2 sides tries to withdraw without fighting, when a confrontation could otherwise happen. An attack value, a defense value, modifiers, situational modifiers. So, for example, this unit has penalties when attacking against pikes or elephants. This number here indicates that you need to play a card, to discard a card to be able to play this card in one of your positions. This one means that if you're playing the card on one of the 2 flank locations, you need to pay an extra cost. Also, these locations may have extra costs and extra abilities or extra characteristics that will make them different from planes. You will start with a hand of 9 cards from your deck. Oh, actually, there's another type of card that I also wanted to show you, which is important, and it is the leader. Where is a leader when you need one? Classic. They kept coming when I wanted to show you other units. Leaders, they have here a modifier. As you can see, there's a symbol of defense and attack because it applies in attack or defense. That is, you can play a leader to enhance your defense or your attack. When you're discarding cards to place cards on the board, remember, in the play area, remember some can be quite expensive, then you can discard a normal card and counts as 1, or you can discard a leader for that value. In that case, this leader would allow you to pay the cost of 2 cards that you need to discard for deployment. This one would be the cost of 3 cards for deployment, and they may also have other abilities. The idea, however, is that the military units will be in the battlefield, and the leaders will be played from hand. You would resolve the effect, usually enhancing something else you're trying to do, and then you discard cards. You will have 2 piles. One is the discard pile, and when you run out of cards from your draw pile, you reshuffle the discard pile and you make a new pile. But also you have the destroyed pile, and as you can imagine, that means the cards that go there are lost forever and never to be seen again. Now, during your turn, the first thing that you do is you check if you won the game by controlling 3 locations. If you don't, next you check to see if there are locations where you have unopposed units and you don't control them yet, then you set them to control. Then you resolve flank attacks. I'll talk about that later. Let's just say it's a special kind of attack that, well, if you are attacking an opponent, and there is an unopposed unit you attack from frontally, and there's an unopposed unit that could lend support and whose flank is not threatened, then you get to attack with a bonus. But in general, generally speaking, for now, trust me, that's just a mighty attack. But after that, we get to the main phase of the turn, which is when you play cards from hand. You can play cards and attack in any order. That means you could play a card or 2, declare an attack, see what happens, play more cards, then declare 2 attacks, and so on and so forth. Very flexible schedule. You can only have 2 cards, 2 units per slot. To play a card, you simply put it down face up next to a slot, and oh well, and then that's pretty much it. Now, usually units, to have 2 units in the same slot, they need to be of the same kind, say spear with spear. But then you have some units that have a special symbol, which is the link of a chain, and those can be played together with any other unit, suppose like so. Now, attack. You simply choose an area where you have units and you declare an attack against the unit or units on the other side. You have to take into account several modifiers, including a bonus card. That is, you may play as the attacker, you declare the attack, and then you can play a card from hand face down. You committed, but the opponent doesn't know what you play. At that point, the opponent may choose to withdraw if their speed is higher than the speed of the opponent, in which case they just leave there. Or they can decide to stand, in which case they also can play a bonus card. The bonus card for both players can come from hand, or you can draw it directly from the top of the deck. If the fight is going to happen, we reveal the bonus cards. If it's a leader, we're going to apply the bonus, in which case we have bonuses for both sides. It may be that it wasn't a leader, in which case the card is discarded with no effect because, well, you were just bluffing, you had no leaders, but you wanted to scare the opponent into believing that you had one. Then you calculate the strength of your attack or defense. The attacker chooses one of their units. You start with the basic attack number of the unit that you're using. You add modifiers from here and possible from here from your leader. If you have a supporting unit, you add a +1. You have a +1, but you do not take into account what the strength of the unit is. And again, there are other things that may apply. Say, for example, terrain may give you benefits. If it's a flank attack that you resolved earlier, you also have a +2, and so on and so forth. And the defender does the same, pretty much adding all of their defense value from their base, from one of their units, possibly a supporting unit, possibly a leader bonus, possibly anything else. What happens next? Well, pretty much the player that has the most wins the confrontation. And here the easiest thing to show you is to simply look at this matrix here, because there will be outcomes for the units and for the column, and for the column that is for the terrain that people are fighting for. Generally speaking, if you win, if you lose, you get your cards. Your cards are destroyed. If the defender wins, the defender stays there, the attacker units are destroyed, and bonus cards are discarded. If the defender already controlled the area, no change in status. After all, the defender defended effectively. Otherwise, set to neutral. If the attacker wins, then the defender's units are destroyed, the attacker's units remain in the column, all bonus cards are discarded, and the attacker take control. So the defender withdraws, similar effects, tied, everybody is discarded but not destroyed, and you set it to neutral. So this basically is how you play the game. At the end of your turn, you draw 3 cards, 4 if it's after your first reshuffle of the discard deck into a new draw pile. Continue like this until one of the players has 3 cards under their control at the beginning of the turn, and that player will be the winner of the game. So, Milito, I like it. I think it's a solid game. I definitely enjoyed playing it. It has a lot of replay value thanks to the different combinations that you can create with the 6 armies that you get here. Different terrain, and that does matter. If there is a hill and one of the 2 sides or both players have archers, that is something you want to take into account, for example, because you get an advantage as you're shooting arrows from there. So a lot of variety there, a lot of replay value, but also play value, which of course is important. Why would we care about replay value if playing the game wasn't fun? What we have here is a game that, as far as I understand, from my understanding of ancient warfare, does reproduce the different dynamics, the different relationships, the problems and dilemmas, and advantages and strengths of the different units that you had at the time. So you have the Romans, and you have the Macedonians that have these heavy formations that, however, will force you to discard a lot of cards to simulate, I guess, the difficulty of deploying these units. Then you have other units that are light and fast and can support anybody, but they don't do much by themselves. In fact, they can only lend support. But then you have all of these little modifiers that will depict how a unit behaves in front of another one. Some special rules for elephants. You always need those because elephants are fun, but you need to take care of their somewhat quirky, sometimes quirky behavior. So I like the variety that you have in the different troops, and also the leaders. I like the fact that the leaders are all different, and the different armies behave differently when it comes to leaders. Say the ancient British have what I may call situational leaders. They're not very reliable. The standard bonus that they have is not that great, but on the other hand, if you put them in certain formations, that you have really good advantage, really good bonuses, as opposed to, say, the Romans that are more reliable, more pragmatic, matter-of-factly. So different variety there, and then of different troops, and therefore different things that you can do. Highly interactive, of course, because it's all about getting more than the opponent has. It's about defending a certain position. But definitely I like the hand management challenges that you have, and also with the bluffing element, because, well, if I put down a bonus card, you don't know if it's a bonus card or not. And actually, after a while, when you become familiar with the leaders of the opponent, you also, well, I think it would be that leader or that other leader, and of course, if it's one, I'm gonna win this battle. If it's the other one, I'm gonna lose the battle. So that's where I have to choose if I want to withdraw or not. The only thing, it is possible that the game may drag a little bit. Players just of equal or similar strength, and neither of them plagued by extreme bad luck, may reach sometimes a situation of a little bit of stasis, and then the game just goes on for maybe a little too long until one of the players manages to destroy so many units of the opponent and to get a time where they can get units out there and gain that advantage. But that's not gonna happen every time. Most of the games that I had were just the right length, enough that I could see the architecture, the progression from having the initial deployment, some clashes here and there, units that get destroyed, some withdrawals, some surprising maneuvers, and so you had that sense of building of a situation, weakening of an opponent, the tension in which you realize, oh wow, I need to take at least one territory card this turn or my opponent will win. So from the relaxed deployment, the losses from both sides, the increasing building towards the grand finale, all of that works, and again, in most cases, it does not overstay its welcome. In general, Milito is a highly thematic, highly replayable, and fun game. It's going to be on Kickstarter soon, as far as I understand. If you liked what you saw in this video, then, you know, it could be a good idea if maybe you back the Kickstarter. I also like the fact that the system can go in a lot of different directions. I can already imagine more armies that I hope will be produced in the future. In general, however, Milito, a fun game.